February 11th doesn't arrive loudly. There are no dramatic signs in the sky, no sudden events that force your attention. And yet, something feels undeniably different today. If you woke up feeling slightly off, not anxious, but not the same either, this message is for you. If your thoughts feel quieter, but deeper, if your emotions feel heavier, but clearer, if you've been reflecting without trying to, remembering things you thought you had already healed, you're not imagining it. February 11th marks a kind of awakening that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't push. It doesn't rush. It simply arrives. And that's why so many people miss it. Most spiritual awakenings people talk about are dramatic, sudden realizations, life-changing moments, emotional releases. But what's happening now is different. This is a quiet awakening, one that works beneath the surface, one that doesn't demand your attention. It waits for your awareness. You may notice today that your tolerance for noise is lower, for meaningless conversations, for situations that once felt normal but now feel draining. You're not becoming antisocial, you're becoming aligned. February 11th carries an energy of internal truth surfacing. Not truth you learn, but truth you remember. That's why thoughts from the past may be resurfacing. Old versions of yourself, old dreams, old decisions. Not to pull you backward, but to show you how far you've come. This awakening doesn't feel like excitement. It feels like clarity without emotion. A calm knowing. A subtle shift in perspective. You might notice you're less reactive. Things that once triggered you now pass through quietly. And instead of reacting, you observe. That's a sign. Because awakening isn't always about feeling more. Sometimes it's about needing less. On February 11th, the energy favors inner listening. That's why forcing motivation today feels exhausting. Why pushing yourself feels wrong. Why resting doesn't feel lazy, it feels necessary. This is a recalibration moment. Many people confuse this phase with stagnation. They think something is wrong because nothing feels urgent. But spiritually, urgency disappears when alignment begins.
If you've made it this far, don't forget to subscribe for daily cosmic insights, astrology updates, and spiritual guidance, because the universe always has a message for you.
You're not stuck. You're integrating. This is the kind of awakening where your intuition doesn't shout, it whispers. And if you're distracted, you'll miss it. That's why silence feels different today, more present, more alive. You may feel drawn to slow music, quiet walks, or simply staring into space. That's not boredom. That's your nervous system adjusting to a higher baseline of awareness. Another sign of this awakening is emotional honesty. Not dramatic honesty, but subtle recognition. You suddenly know what you no longer want, without anger, without resentment, just certainty. And that kind of knowing is powerful. February 11th isn't about changing your life today. It's about realizing that your life has already changed, and you're just catching up. That's why conversations feel different, why you notice pauses, why you listen more than you speak. You're no longer trying to be understood by everyone. You're only interested in being truthful with yourself. This quiet awakening is also dissolving old identities. Roles you played, masks you wore, versions of yourself that were built for survival, not fulfillment. And when those identities soften, it can feel like emptiness. But that emptiness isn't loss, it's space. Space for alignment, space for authenticity, space for a future that doesn't require you to betray yourself. If today feels emotionally neutral but spiritually full, that's not a contradiction. That's mastery. You're learning how to exist without constant emotional stimulation, how to be present without needing drama, how to feel whole without external validation. That's rare. That's why this awakening feels lonely for some. Not because you're disconnected, but because your frequency is changing, and not everyone can follow you there. February 11th asks only one thing of you. Don't rush this clarity. Let it settle. Let it speak. Let it guide you quietly. You don't need answers today. You need awareness, and awareness is already arriving. If this message found you at the exact right moment, if it put words to something you couldn't explain, then take that as confirmation. This awakening wasn't meant to shake your world. It was meant to steady it. And from here, everything unfolds differently, slowly, intentionally, truthfully. Let me know in the comments if today feels calm, heavy, or strangely clear for you, because you're not alone in this shift. What this quiet awakening is releasing from you. As February 11th continues to unfold, something subtle begins to loosen inside you. Not dramatically, not painfully, but unmistakably. This quiet awakening isn't adding anything new yet. It's removing what no longer belongs. You may notice today that certain thoughts simply don't stick anymore. Old worries try to appear, but they fade before completing the story. Old fears knock, but you don't open the door. That's not avoidance, that's resolution. This energy is dissolving emotional habits, not emotions themselves. The habit of overthinking, the habit of self-doubt, the habit of needing reassurance. You're not becoming careless, you're becoming rooted. This is why guilt feels weaker now, why shame feels outdated, why explaining yourself feels unnecessary. The awakening happening now removes the need to prove your worth to anyone, including yourself. And when that need disappears, life becomes quieter, but infinitely clearer. You may feel detached from outcomes today, detached from expectations, detached from timelines you once obsessed over. This doesn't mean you've stopped caring. It means you've stopped forcing. February 11th releases the illusion that everything must happen now. Instead, you're learning to trust the unfolding. And that trust doesn't feel exciting. It feels steady. Some people experience this phase as emotional flatness, but it's not emptiness. It's equilibrium. This awakening is teaching you how peace feels when it's real, not temporary, not conditional. And once you recognize that feeling, you'll never chase chaos again. Why you're becoming selective with energy and people. As this quiet awakening deepens, something else becomes obvious. Your energy has become precious, not scarce, intentional. You may notice you're less available, less responsive, less interested in conversations that circle without depth. This isn't withdrawal, it's discernment. February 11th sharpens your awareness of energetic exchange. You can feel when something costs more than it gives. You can sense when someone is listening versus waiting to speak. And without drama, you step back. This is one of the most misunderstood signs of awakening. People assume you're changing because you're cold, but the truth is, you're finally warm with yourself. You no longer abandon your inner state to maintain external harmony. That's growth. This is why some relationships may feel distant today. Not broken, just outgrown. And that's okay. Awakening doesn't always bring people closer. Sometimes it clarifies who belongs in which chapter. You're no longer here to rescue, convince, or overextend. You're here to resonate. And resonance doesn't require effort, only honesty. The inner voice you're finally hearing clearly. By now, you may have noticed something profound. Your inner voice feels calmer, but stronger. It doesn't argue, it doesn't justify, it simply states. This is intuition without fear attached. February 11th activates clarity without emotional charge. You know things without needing proof. You feel direction without urgency. That's how true guidance works. It doesn't rush you. It grounds you. This is why forcing decisions today feels uncomfortable. Your soul isn't ready to move. It's ready to anchor. Anchor into truth. Anchor into boundaries. Anchor into self-trust. You may feel called to pause before major steps. That pause isn't hesitation, it's alignment locking in. This awakening teaches you that silence isn't empty, it's instructive. And if you listen closely today, you'll hear exactly what matters next. Not all at once, but enough. Enough to trust yourself again. What comes after this quiet awakening? What happens after February 11th isn't immediate change, it's inevitable change. Because once awareness settles, action becomes effortless. In the days ahead, choices will feel simpler. Paths will narrow, not because options disappear, but because clarity increases. You won't chase anymore, you'll choose. You won't react anymore, you'll respond. And you won't fear uncertainty, because you'll recognize yourself within it. This quiet awakening prepares you for a grounded future. One built on truth, not urgency. Presence, not pressure. And the most powerful part? You don't need to announce this transformation. You don't need validation. You don't need confirmation. You'll feel it. And others will sense it too. Not because you changed who you are, but because you finally stopped leaving yourself behind. If this entire message feels like it's describing something you couldn't explain until now, leave a comment with one word that captures your state today. Calm, clear, heavy, neutral, or aware. Because this awakening may be quiet, but it's deeply real.